Ever get that feeling like you want to learn something new and interesting really fast, like dive deep into something a little mysterious?
Yeah, totally. I mean, sometimes you just want to go down that rabbit hole,
Right. Well, listeners, today we're going down a rabbit hole for sure. We're diving into a real-life ghost story, one with roots right in the heart of Broadway history.
Ooh, okay, I am so ready for this. So are we talking about like a specific theater ghost then?
We are. We're focusing on the story of Olive Thomas and the tales about her ghost at the New Amsterdam Theatre.
Wow, okay. I've definitely heard her name before. But to be honest, the details are a little fuzzy for me.
No worries. That's what we're here for. We've got some really interesting sources to guide us. We'll be looking at excerpts from a blog post called The Ghost of Olive Thomas, Speaking for a Change. And then we'll also be pulling from a Playbill.com article titled The True Fact-Checked Story of the New Amsterdam Theater's Ghost.
Okay, love Playbill. And that fact-check part is key too, right? We want to sort out the facts from the spooky speculation.
Exactly. So we'll explore Olive's life and her tragic death, and then we'll get into all those ghostly stories, all while keeping our sources in mind. So, first things first, who was Olive Thomas? What was her deal before she became, this legendary figure?
Well, Olive Thomas, her real name was actually Oliva Duffy. She was born in Pennsylvania in 1894. And her story is kind of fascinating because it's a real rags to riches and then tragedy kind of thing.
That's what makes these deep dives so intriguing, right? The unexpected turns.
Absolutely. So the blog post really emphasizes how tough her early life was. At just 15, her father died, and she had to drop out of school to support her family. Imagine that, having to become the breadwinner at 15.
That's a heavy burden for anyone, let alone a teenager.
Right. So she ended up working in a department store in her hometown, just trying to make ends meet for her mom and her younger brothers.
So not exactly a glamorous start.
Not at all. But she was clearly driven and ambitious. She married young, just 16, to a guy named Bernard Thomas. But the blog makes it pretty clear that marriage wasn't meant to be. She ended up visiting an aunt in New York City and basically never went back to Pennsylvania, or to her husband for that matter.
So New York was the turning point.
It seems that way. New York City in the early 1900s, talk about a place to reinvent yourself, right?
It must have been electric.
And Olive, she seized the opportunity. In 1914, she entered a Most Beautiful Girl in New York City contest.
Wow, okay. And she won.
She did. And get this, the judge was the famous artist Howard Chandler Christie. Talk about a claim to fame. This win really catapulted her into the spotlight. Suddenly, she's this sought-after model. We're talking magazine covers, advertisements, you name it.
Like an overnight sensation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The blog post really drives home just how popular she became. She was featured in tons of portraits, even becoming the first ever Vargas girl. Those iconic pinup paintings by Alberto Vargas.
Okay, yeah, I think I've seen those.
So that's Olive, right there at the start of this huge cultural phenomenon. And think about it, this is way before Instagram or TikTok or any of that. This was pure visual impact, a striking image capturing the public's attention.
That's wild. It's like she understood the power of image before it was even, a thing,
Total trailblazer. But her ambitions didn't stop at modeling. She set her sights on Broadway.
Broadway, that's a huge leap.
It is. But within a year of her modeling success, Olive landed a spot in the Ziegfeld Follies.
The Ziegfeld Follies. That's like the pinnacle of theatrical entertainment back then, right?
Exactly. And not just any spot. The blog makes it clear she was the most popular performer in the entire show. And Florian Ziegfeld himself, the mastermind behind the Follies, he even gave her a starring role in the Ziegfeld Frolics. That was like the after-hours, more risque version of the Follies, definitely geared towards a male audience.
Oh, wow. So she was pushing boundaries even then. Okay,
Yeah.
So model, Broadway star, what's next?
Well, Olive had her sights set even higher. She wanted Hollywood.
Of course she did. She was unstoppable.
Right. And she transitioned seamlessly into silent films. The blog emphasizes how she was the first actress to portray a flapper on screen. Think about that, like the original Flapper Girl.
That's incredible.
It is. Sadly, a lot of her films are lost now. But the ones that we do have show just how talented she was. She was full of life, had great comedic timing, and audiences loved her. The blog even mentions this funny anecdote about how she was popular with everyone. Women, men, and apparently even a moose.
Wait, what? A moose?
Yeah, apparently she was filming a scene, and this moose just wandered onto the set and was totally enamored with her.
That's hilarious. Okay, so we've got this rising star conquering modeling, Broadway, and Hollywood. But what about her personal life? I mean, the blog mentioned a husband.
Right, so she was married to Jack Pickford.
Yeah.
And get this, he was the brother of Mary Pickford.
Oh, wow. Mary Pickford, like Hollywood royalty.
Exactly. But their marriage, well, it was a bit of a roller coaster. The blog quotes a screenwriter, Frances Marion, who described Olive and Jack as the gayest, wildest brats on Broadway, more into living life to the fullest than focusing on their careers.
Sounds like a passionate couple.
They were. But there was definitely some drama there. They fought a lot. There were rumors of infidelity on both sides, and they even separated a few times before reconciling.
So a real tumultuous relationship.
It was. And then in 1920, tragedy struck. They traveled to Europe, and while in Paris, well, the details are a bit murky, but the blog suggests that Olive accidentally drank a solution that contained medication Jack was taking for syphilis.
Oh, wow. Syphilis. That was a huge deal back then, right?
It was a serious illness, and there was a lot of stigma around it. The treatments were pretty intense, too. Anyway, the drug goes on to describe how they tried to save her, but she died in a hospital in Paris. She was only 25.
That is so heartbreaking.
It is. And it fueled a lot of rumors, especially since it happened in Paris, the city of love and all that. Some people whispered about suicide, but the official ruling was accidental poisoning.
So a tragic end to such a promising life.
It really is. Jack had her body brought back to the States for cremation, and you'd think that would be the end of the story. But it's not, is it?
Nope. This is where the ghost story really begins.
Exactly. According to the blog and countless other accounts, Olive's ghost is said to haunt the New Amsterdam Theatre, the same theater where she had her breakout role in the Ziegfeld Follies.
It all circles back.
It does. Now, the New Amsterdam, it's an incredible building. It was built in 1902, and it was this opulent palace of entertainment, but it had fallen into disrepair by the 1930s, even became a movie theater for a while, before being abandoned altogether.
It's crazy how these grand old theaters can go from such glamour to being, well, forgotten.
It really is. But then Disney came along.
Disney. Like Mickey Mouse Disney.
One and only. They decided to make the New Amsterdam their New York headquarters and restore the whole theater to its former glory. We're talking a $15 million restoration.
$15 million? That's a serious commitment.
Right. But that's when all the strange stuff started happening.
Wait, what kind of strange stuff?
Well, the blog talks about all these stagehands who claim to have seen this beautiful woman in a green dress, like a 1920s flapper-style dress, just appearing and disappearing out of thin air.
Okay, that's pretty creepy.
Oh, it gets creepier. The most famous story is about this security guard. Apparently, he was working the night shift when he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around and saw a woman in a flapper dress, just like the others had described, but she walked right through a wall and out onto 41st Street.
No way.
That's what he told Dana Amendola anyway.
Who's Dana Amendola?
Oh, sorry. She was the vice president of operations for Disney Theatricals at the time.
Okay, so he went straight to the top with this ghost story.
Apparently. And both the blog and the Playbill articles say these kinds of sightings have been going on for years. It's like decades even.
So it's not just a one-off thing?
Nope. In fact, the blog quotes Dana Amendola saying, "This has been going on for 20 years that I remember. I think she likes the attention."
That's an interesting way to look at it, like the ghost wants to be remembered.
Right. Like maybe that's why she keeps appearing.
So if she's looking for attention, is there anything about who she appears to? Like, does she show up for everyone?
Well, according to the legends, she mainly appears to men.
Really? Only men?
The Disney rep the blog author talked to said that a lot of male employees had claimed to see Olive's ghost. And apparently they even took it into account when hiring overnight security.
What do you mean?
Well, they always make sure the overnight guards are women.
No kidding. So like a ghost avoidance strategy.
It seems that way.
Wow. Okay, so fast forward to today. Is there any trace of Olive's presence at the New Amsterdam?
Oh, absolutely. The blog describes how the author visited the theater and saw a whole wall dedicated to photos of the stars who have performed there. And right before you enter the seating area, there's a picture of Olive Thomas.
A picture of Olive?
Yeah, and get this. It's become a tradition for everyone to blow a kiss to her picture and say hello before entering the theater.
That's kind of sweet, actually.
It is. And the blog mentions that they even have pictures of her by all the exits. And the actors make a point of saying hello and goodbye to her, almost like she's still part of the theater community.
That's a bit eerie, but also kind of nice in a way.
I know, right? It's like she's become this enduring presence woven into the very fabric of the theater.
Okay, so we have a Playbill article too, right? What does it add to the story?
What mentions a really interesting podcast called You Must Remember This. They did a whole episode on Olive Thomas's death, and they really dug into all the rumors and misinformation that surrounded it.
Okay, so this podcast really tried to separate fact from fiction.
Yeah, they really explored the history and tried to understand what really happened.
It's amazing how a story like this can still capture people's imaginations after all these years.
It really is. Okay, so let's sum this all up. We've got Olive Thomas, this incredibly vibrant and ambitious young woman who went from poverty to fame in the blink of an eye. She was a model, a Broadway star, a silent film actress. She had this whirlwind romance, a tragic death in Paris, and then these enduring stories of her ghost haunting the New Amsterdam Theatre. That's a lot to take in, right?
It really is. It's a story full of highs and lows, glamour and heartbreak, and of course a healthy dose of mystery. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What is it about stories like this that keeps us coming back for more?
Exactly. What is it about fame, tragedy, and the idea of something beyond our understanding that fascinates us so much?
And if we think back to what Dana Amendola said about Olive liking the attention, well, does that give us some insight into how we as a society remember and memorialize people from the past, especially those whose lives were cut short? Like, is this attention, this perpetuation of her story, a way of keeping her memory alive, or maybe even a way for her to achieve a kind of immortality?
Those are some pretty deep questions.
They are. And they're the kinds of questions that keep us thinking, keep us exploring, keep us diving deep into these fascinating stories. So to our listeners, what do you think? Is Olive Thomas just a ghost story, or is there something more to it?
Let us know. And until next time, keep those rabbit holes open.
Yeah.
You never know what you might find.
See you next time.